The moment Donovan Clay's fist hit the table, everyone knew someone was about to disappear. But when the waitress walked straight toward him and said 3 words that froze his bodyguards mid-draw, the entire city's power structure shattered in seconds. She didn't know those words would start a kidnapping, a federal raid, and force the monster screaming about a stake to burn his entire empire down just to keep her alive. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like the video, and comment where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring more powerful stories. And trust me, you won't want to miss them. Now, let's go back to hours before, where it all started. The crystal chandeliers of the Elysian bathed the dining room in pools of golden light, each beam catching on white linen tablecloths and polished silverware arranged with geometric precision. This wasn't just an upscale restaurant. It was a cathedral of power dressed in cream walls and heavy silk drapes. The kind of place where senators whispered over Bordeaux, where corporate mergers were sealed with handshakes beneath candlelight, and where men who controlled the city's dark underbelly pretended to be civilized. On this particular Friday evening in late autumn, the air hummed with muted jazz from a pianist tucked in the corner, punctuated by the delicate clink of crystal glasses and the low murmur of conversations worth millions. The clientele knew better than to speak too loudly here. Discretion was currency. Power was measured in silence. Deals worth fortunes happened over wine and filet mignon at tables where politicians sat beside corporate executives who sat beside men operating in society's shadows. Everyone pretended not to notice who was dining with whom. Everyone pretended the thin line between legitimate and criminal enterprise didn't blur beneath these chandeliers. Every Friday at exactly 8 p.m. for the past 5 months, the corner booth remained untouchable. Donovan Clay arrived precisely on time, flanked by 2 men in dark suits who peeled off to a nearby table like satellites orbiting a dangerous planet. Vincent and Carlo. Everyone on staff knew their names. Everyone knew not to look at them too long, not to bring them menus without being asked, not to make any sudden movements in their direction. Donovan claimed the corner booth with the ease of someone who owned everything he touched. His back settled against the wall, a position that allowed him to survey the entire dining room like a predator surveying a watering hole. At 37, he radiated controlled menace. His tan suit was tailored to perfection, the kind of craftsmanship that whispered wealth without shouting. The open collar of his white shirt revealed a gold chain that caught the light with every breath, and on his wrist, barely visible beneath his cuff, a family crest tattoo marked him as legacy. Old money crime, the dangerous kind. His dark hair was slicked back with precision, not a strand out of place. His jawline was sharp, his stubble trimmed to calculated perfection. His eyes were dark, cold, and constantly moving, tracking every entrance, every exit, every face that turned toward him and quickly looked away. Donovan Clay looked like power, money, and violence wrapped in expensive fabric. The restaurant staff tensed the moment he walked in. Shoulders tightened. Smiles became more forced. Even the veteran servers moved with extra care, as if the air itself had become fragile. Mr. Clay, Paolo, the head waiter, approached with visible nervousness despite 15 years of professional composure. His hands wanted to tremble. He clasped them together to keep them steady. Your usual this evening? Donovan didn't look up from his phone. Messages flooded in, one after another. Territory disputes in the South End. Shipment delays at the harbor. Someone skimming profits from the dock operations. His jaw clenched as he scrolled, his thumb moving with barely controlled aggression. You know what I want, Paolo? Of course, sir. Wagyu ribeye, medium rare. The 2007 Barolo. Truffle risotto on the side. Right away. Paolo retreated like a man who'd just avoided stepping on a landmine, relief evident in every quick step back toward the kitchen. Around the restaurant, conversations continued, but everyone tracked the corner booth with peripheral vision. They'd all heard the stories, whispered in boardrooms and bars across the city. Business owners who refused Clay protection woke to find their buildings reduced to ash. Rivals who challenged his territory simply vanished, their disappearances explained away by rumors of sudden moves to Florida or Mexico, or sometimes just into the ground. Nothing was ever proven naturally. Donovan Clay operated in the gray spaces between law and chaos, and he perfected the art of never leaving fingerprints. He didn't need to raise his voice. He didn't need to make threats. His reputation did all the talking. Anna Marcano pushed through the kitchen's swinging doors, 3 plates balanced with the practiced grace of someone who'd been doing this since she was 18. At 26, she moved through the dining room like she belonged there, her dark hair pulled back in a sleek low ponytail that emphasized her high cheekbones and striking features. Her grandmother's pearl earrings caught the chandelier light with each step. The restaurant's uniform looked crisp on her. White button-down shirt, black suspenders, and the red apron tied at her waist that mark her as front-of-house staff. She'd been at the Elysian for 8 months now, working double shifts because the tips here could cover a month of nursing school tuition in a single weekend. 3 jobs kept her afloat. This one, overnight shifts at City General Hospital. Weekend tutoring for pre-med students struggling through anatomy. Whatever it took to get her younger brother Leo through community college and herself through that final semester. Table 9 needs water refills, she called to Stefano, the busser, before heading toward the main floor with her delivery. Anna, wait. Luis, her manager, caught her elbow, his voice dropping to an urgent whisper. His eyes darted toward the corner booth, then back to her face. Corner booth, be aware tonight. Don't look him in the eye too long. Don't speak unless he speaks to you first. Actually, just stay clear if you can manage it. Anna glanced toward the booth, saw the man in the tan suit staring at his phone with an expression like thunder barely contained. Who is he? Just trust me. Stay clear. Anna nodded, but confusion flickered across her face. She didn't understand the fear in Luis's eyes, the tension in his grip. In her world, people were people. Rich or poor, powerful or struggling. Everyone deserved the same basic respect and dignity. Her father had taught her that. Detective Samuel Marcano had treated street kids and senators with identical courtesy. That lesson had cost him his life 7 years ago, but Anna still believed it with everything in her. She didn't know who sat in the corner booth. Didn't particularly care to know. He was just another customer in an expensive suit who'd probably leave an oversized tip to feel important. She'd smile, take his order if needed, and treat him the same way she treated everyone else. With professional respect, but no fear. Your Wagyu ribeye, Mr. Clay. Paolo placed the plate before Donovan with the reverence, usually reserved for religious artifacts. Chef Emmanuel prepared it personally. Medium rare, exactly as you prefer, sir. Donovan's phone vibrated against the table. Another text from his consigliera. Doc, situation worse than we thought. $2 million short this quarter. Someone's playing us. Need to meet tonight. His hand tightened around the phone until his knuckles went white. Someone in his organization was stealing from him. Someone had looked at Donovan Clay's carefully constructed empire and thought they could skim off the top without consequences. The disrespect made his blood simmer beneath his skin. In his world, theft wasn't just crime. It was betrayal. It was a challenge to his authority. And challenges to his authority had only one response. Violence. Swift and permanent. He set the phone down with controlled force and picked up his knife and fork. Cut into the steak with more aggression than necessary, his mind already 3 steps ahead, planning the lesson he'd need to teach. The Rossini family had tried to test him last month over the East Harbor territory. They learned quickly. Now, someone inside his own organization needed the same education. The meat was cooked perfectly, pink in the center, seared beautifully on the outside, the exact temperature he'd requested. He knew it was perfect. Chef Emmanuel never missed. But the rage building in his chest needed an outlet, and the steak sitting in front of him became the easiest target. Anna was crossing toward table 12 with their entrees when she heard the voice. It cut through the gentle jazz and quiet conversations like a blade through silk, sharp and sudden and filled with barely controlled fury. This is unacceptable. The restaurant didn't just quiet. It froze. Forks stopped midway to mouths. Wine glasses paused at lips. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even the pianist's hands hesitated over the keys, the melody dying mid-phrase like someone had pressed pause on reality itself. Anna turned toward the corner booth. The man in the tan suit was standing now, his 6'2" frame towering over the table, his expression thunderous. The plate sat before him, the steak cut open to reveal perfectly pink meat. I asked for medium rare. His voice carried across the silent room, each word deliberate and dangerous, controlled rage wrapped in expensive diction. This is raw, bloody. Are you trying to insult me? Paolo rushed over, his face drained of all color. Mr. Clay, I apologize profusely. I'll have Chef Emmanuel prepare another immediately. There's no charge, of course. I don't care what Emmanuel does. Donovan shoved the plate away with barely controlled violence. The silverware clattered. Wine glasses trembled. This is incompetence. Pure incompetence. Do you understand me? The entire restaurant held its breath. Waiters stood frozen mid-step, trays hovering. Diners stared at their plates, pretending not to watch while watching everything. The two men at the nearby table, Vincent and Carlo, sat forward slightly, their hands moving toward their jackets in synchronized motion. Anna's jaw tightened as she watched the scene unfold. She'd seen that plate leave the kitchen 3 minutes ago. She'd watched Emmanuel inspect it personally, checking the internal temperature with a thermometer, examining the sear, adjusting the presentation with tweezers until every element was perfect. It had been flawless. She'd stake her entire 8-month reputation at the Elysian on it. This wasn't about the steak. This was about a man who needed to feel powerful, who needed everyone in the room to remember they should be afraid of him. She'd seen it before. Men who wielded money or influence like weapons, who couldn't feel secure unless someone was cowering. Before Louise could grab her arm, before common sense could override the instinct her father had drilled into her about standing up to bullies, Anna set down her tray on a nearest table and walked directly toward the corner booth. Her red apron stood out like a warning flag against the muted elegance of the dining room. Anna, no. Louise's whispered warning barely registered over the ringing in her ears. She stopped beside Donovan Clay's table, her posture straight, her shoulders back. Her blue-green eyes met his dark ones without a trace of the fear he was accustomed to seeing in everyone around him. Up close, she could see he was younger than she'd expected. Mid-30s, maybe. His face would have been genuinely handsome if not for the cold fury twisting his features into something cruel. That gold chain at his collar caught the light. The family crest tattoo peeked from beneath his cuff. The watch on his wrist probably cost more than she'd make in 2 years of double shifts. Is there a problem with your meal, sir? Her voice was calm, professional, steady as a heartbeat. Donovan looked up at her, and for a fraction of a second, genuine surprise flickered across his face. Most people avoided his gaze like it could burn them. This woman was staring right at him like he was just another customer having a bad day, like he was nobody special, nobody to fear. The surprise lasted only a moment before his expression hardened again, his eyes going cold. The problem, he said slowly, dangerously, each word dropping like a stone into still water, is incompetence. Do you understand what that word means? Anna didn't blink, didn't look away, didn't let her voice waver even slightly. I understand it perfectly. I also understand when someone is looking for a reason to be angry. The temperature in the restaurant dropped 20 degrees. Donovan's face flushed, color rising from his collar to his cheeks. No one spoke to him this way, ever. Not his lieutenants, not rival families, not anyone who valued their safety or their business or their life. His bodyguards half rose from their seats, their jackets falling open to reveal shoulder holsters. The entire restaurant held its breath. Someone's fork clattered against a plate, the sound impossibly loud in the silence. Excuse me. Donovan's voice had gone deadly quiet now, more dangerous in its softness than it had been in its rage. What did you just say to me? Anna looked at him, really looked at him, past the expensive suit and the gold chain and the cold fury in his eyes. She saw something beneath all that armor, exhaustion that went bone deep, loneliness that had calcified into anger. A man drowning in an empire he'd built with his own hands, surrounded by people but utterly alone. A man who'd forgotten what it felt like to be seen as human instead of as power incarnate. She leaned slightly forward, her voice dropping so only he could hear, so quiet that even Vincent and Carlo couldn't make out the words over the blood rushing in their ears. You need help. 3 words. Simple, devastating, surgical in their precision. Donovan froze completely. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. His hands, which had been clenched into fists against the table, went slack. His eyes widened just slightly, the fury draining out of them to be replaced by something that looked almost like shock. Like he'd been slapped. Like someone had reached inside his chest and grabbed his heart. The restaurant was suspended in time. Forks hung in midair. Wine remained untasted in glasses held halfway to lips. Even the piano player's hands hovered over the keys, frozen in the space between one note and the next. Anna straightened, her expression softening just slightly. She reached across the table and placed a fresh napkin beside his plate with gentle deliberation. I'll have Chef Emmanuel prepare a new steak for you. Medium rare. Exactly as you prefer, Mr. Clay. She turned and walked back toward the kitchen, her red apron bright as blood against the cream and gold of the restaurant. Her footsteps were steady, unhurried. She didn't look back. Donovan remained frozen, staring at the space where she'd stood. His mouth was still slightly open. His hands were still slack against the table. His entire body had gone rigid, like someone had turned him to stone with those 3 words. His bodyguards exchanged confused glances, their hands still hovering near their weapons, unsure whether to act, unable to process what had just happened. Vincent looked at Carlo. Carlo looked at Vincent. Neither moved. Slowly, like ice beginning to thaw, sound returned to the restaurant. Someone cleared their throat. A glass was set down carefully. The pianist's hands found the keys again, resuming the melody with shaking fingers. Conversation started up again in hushed whispers, everyone sneaking glances at the corner booth while pretending not to. Donovan sat down slowly, his legs no longer quite steady beneath him. His anger had completely deflated, leaving behind something hollow and exposed. The rage that had been burning in his chest moments ago was gone, replaced by a feeling he couldn't name because he hadn't felt it in over a decade. For the first time in years, he felt something other than rage or control or the cold satisfaction of power maintained through fear. He felt exposed, seen, stripped bare by 3 words from a woman whose name he didn't even know. A waitress in a red apron had just done what no rival family, no federal investigation, no threat of violence had ever managed to do. She made Donovan Clay feel human and terrifyingly vulnerable, and he had absolutely no idea what to do with that. The kitchen doors swung shut behind Anna, and the adrenaline that had held her upright drained away all at once. Her hands started shaking, not the subtle tremor of nervousness, but full tremors that made her grip the edge of the stainless steel prep counter to stay steady. What were you thinking? Luis materialized beside her, his face pale, his voice a harsh whisper. He grabbed her elbow and pulled her into the narrow alcove by the walk-in freezer where the security cameras couldn't see them. Do you have any idea who that man is? Anna shook her head, still processing what had just happened. The look on his face, the way he'd frozen, the complete silence in the dining room. That's Donovan Clay. Luis's voice dropped even lower, barely audible over the clatter of the kitchen. Head of the Clay family. He controls half the city's underground operations. Gambling, protection, shipping, real estate. If you're moving anything illegal through this city, you're paying him a cut or you're dead. Anna felt ice slide down her spine. I didn't know. People who cross him disappear, Anna. Just gone. Businesses that refuse his protection burn to the ground with their owners still inside. 2 years ago, a restaurant owner on 5th Street refused to pay. They found him and his entire family at the bottom of the harbor. Luis's hands are shaking now, too. Nothing was ever proven, but everyone knows. Everyone. Anna leaned against the cold metal wall, her heart hammering. She just told a Mafia boss he needed help. To his face, in front of his men, in a room full of witnesses. He's still just a person who is rude to the staff, she said, but her voice lacked conviction now. "He's not a person, Anna. He's a monster in an expensive suit." Across the kitchen, Chef Emmanuel was already plating a replacement ribeye, his hands steady as surgeons while everyone else's nerves were shot. He'd been cooking in restaurants owned by dangerous men for 30 years. He'd learned long ago that the only way to survive was to do perfect work and keep your mouth shut. The kitchen door swung open. Paolo appeared, his face still bloodless. "It's ready." Emmanuel nodded, slid the plate across the pass. Paolo took it with shaking hands and disappeared back into the dining room. In the corner booth, Donovan stared at the new steak when Paolo placed it before him with stammered apologies. The plate was perfect. The meat was perfect. Everything was exactly as he'd ordered. He didn't touch it. Couldn't touch it. Those 3 words kept looping in his mind like a song he couldn't stop hearing. "You need help." Simple words. Honest words. Words no one had dared speak to him in over a decade. His empire was built on fear, control, calculated violence applied with surgical precision. Truth had no place in that world. Truth was weakness. Truth got you killed or betrayed or both. He learned that lesson at his father's knee and reinforced it with blood for 20 years. But this young waitress had looked at him like she could see straight through the expensive suit and the gold chain and the reputation. Like she could see all the way down to whatever was left of the man beneath the monster everyone feared. He thought about his life. Really thought about it. The sleepless nights, lying awake at 3 a.m., wondering which of his lieutenants would be the first to try for his throne. The constant vigilance, always watching, always calculating threats, never able to relax even for a moment. The loneliness of trusting absolutely no one, not even the men who'd sworn loyalty with blood oaths. When had he last had a genuine conversation? When had someone last looked at him and seen Donovan instead of Donovan Clay, head of the Clay Syndicate? He couldn't remember. That realization hollowed him out. The memories came unbidden. His father, Lorenzo Clay, standing over him in their basement when Donovan was 7 years old. A man tied to a chair begging. Lorenzo's voice, cold as winter. "Weakness equals death, boy. Remember that. The moment you show weakness, you're dead." Now watch. Donovan had watched his first execution at 7. Started collecting debts at 15, his father beside him to make sure he understood that mercy was suicide. By 25, after his father was assassinated by the Delgado family in a restaurant not unlike this one, Donovan had taken over and transformed the Clay Syndicate from street-level thugs into a corporate-level criminal enterprise. Real estate fronts. Shell companies layered so deep the FBI couldn't untangle them. Legitimate businesses masking illegal enterprises. He owned the Elysian through 3 separate shell companies. Nobody knew. That was the point. Operate in the shadows. Never leave fingerprints. Never show your face unless you were reminding someone why they should be afraid. He'd built an empire, but the cost was everything else. He trusted no one, loved no one, lived every moment under constant threat, waiting for the knife that would inevitably come for his back. And a waitress in a red apron had seen that in 3 seconds. Vincent and Carlo watched him from their table, confused and concerned. Their boss hadn't moved in 5 minutes, hadn't touched his replacement steak, just sat there staring at nothing with an expression they'd never seen before, something that almost looked like pain. Anna's shift ended at midnight. She changed out of her uniform in the cramped staff bathroom, pulled on jeans and a jacket, and walked out the back entrance into the cold November night. 6 blocks to her studio apartment. She made the walk so often she could do it in her sleep. Tonight, every shadow made her jump. She kept thinking about Luis's words. People who cross him disappear. She'd crossed him in the most public way possible. In front of his men. In front of dozens of witnesses. She'd humiliated him. But there was something else, too, beneath the fear. A strange sense of liberation. She'd stood up to a monster and walked away. Her father would have been proud. Detective Samuel Marcano had died 7 years ago investigating organized crime connections to City Hall. A car bomb meant for a witness he'd been protecting. Wrong place, wrong time. The case went cold within a month. Too many powerful people wanted it buried. Anna's mother had declined into depression after that, the grief consuming her slowly. She died 2 years later. Heart attack, the doctors said, but Anna knew better. Her mother had died of a broken heart. At 19, Anna had found herself responsible for her younger brother Leo, then 12. She put herself through nursing school while working 3 jobs and raising a kid. The Elysian paid the best tips, but she also worked overnight shifts at City General and tutored pre-med students on weekends. Whatever it took to keep Leo in community college and herself in her final semester. She learned early that standing up to bullies was the only way to survive. Even powerful ones. Especially powerful ones. Her father had taught her that before he died. Fear is a choice, Mija, he told her once, after she came home crying because some kids at school had been picking on her. Respect is earned. Never give someone fear they haven't earned. And never let someone take your dignity just because they think they can. She'd carried those words for 7 years. Tonight, she'd honored them, even if it got her killed. 3 days passed. Anna worked her shifts at the Elysian, watched the door nervously, half expecting men in dark suits to drag her into an alley. Nothing happened. The restaurant operated normally. The corner booth remained empty on Friday night. Maybe he'd forgotten about her. Maybe she was too insignificant to bother with. Then the flowers arrived. Luis found her in the break room, holding 24 white roses wrapped in expensive paper. His face was pale again. These were sent for you specifically. Delivery guy asked for Anna Marcano by name. There was no card, no message. Just perfect white roses that probably cost more than her weekly paycheck. Anna's stomach twisted. She took the flowers, walked straight to the dumpster behind the restaurant, and threw them in. Anna, what are you doing? Luis hissed. Those are from him. You can't just throw them away. What if he finds out? Then he finds out. She brushed her hands off and walked back inside. What she didn't see. The black Escalade parked across the street, its windows tinted dark. Donovan sat in the back seat, watching her through the rear window. He'd watched the delivery, watched her throw the flowers away without hesitation. He should have been angry, should have been insulted. Instead, he felt something unfamiliar, something that might have been respect. He told himself he was here to make sure she didn't talk, didn't become a problem. She'd humiliated him. She was a loose end. He was just monitoring the situation. But the truth, the one he couldn't admit even to himself, was simpler and more dangerous. He couldn't stop thinking about her, about the way she'd looked at him, about those 3 words that had cut through 30 years of armor like it was paper. He was captivated, obsessed, and that terrified him more than any rival family ever had. That evening, Vincent approached carefully while Donovan sat in his study, nursing whiskey he wasn't drinking. Boss, we need to talk. About. People are noticing. Vincent kept his voice neutral, his posture respectful. You've driven past that restaurant 4 times this week. The Rossini family has watchers in that neighborhood. They're going to notice if they haven't already. Donovan's voice went to ice. Are you questioning me? Never, boss. Never. Vincent raised his hand slightly. Just being careful. You taught me to watch for patterns. Other people watch for patterns too. The Rossini family especially. They think you're distracted. Donovan wanted to dismiss him, wanted to say it was nothing, that he was handling a security concern, that Vincent was overreacting. But Vincent was right. Vincent was always right. That's why he'd survived 12 years at Donovan's side, when so many others hadn't. Noted, Donovan's tone made it clear the conversation was over. Vincent left, but his words lingered. Showing interest in anyone was showing weakness. Weakness invited challenges. In Donovan's world, caring about someone didn't make you human. It made them a target. And making someone a target meant their blood would eventually be on his hands. He drained the whiskey in 1 swallow and poured another. 3 words. 3 simple words from a waitress who didn't know who he was, who'd looked at him and seen a man instead of a monster. You need help. God help him, she was right. 2 weeks passed without incident. Anna almost convinced herself it was over. Saturday morning found her at the weekend farmer's market, canvas bag slung over her shoulder, picking through vegetables for Leo's dinner. The November air was crisp, carrying the scent of fresh bread and roasted coffee from the vendor stalls. She wore jeans and a simple blue sweater, her dark hair loose around her shoulders instead of pulled back in the severe ponytail required at work. Out here, She looked nothing like the polished waitress who'd stood up to a mafia boss. Out here, she was just Anna, buying carrots and potatoes on her day off. "These are from my nephew's farm upstate," the elderly vegetable vendor was saying, holding up a bunch of carrots with dirt still clinging to them. "Organic, no pesticides. He's very proud of them. Maybe too proud. He won't shut up about his carrots at Thanksgiving dinner." Anna laughed, a genuine sound that felt good after weeks of looking over her shoulder. "I'll take 2 bunches. Your nephew's humble carrots deserve a good home." "Bless you, dear." The vendor started wrapping them in brown paper. That's when Anna felt it. Eyes on her. The same prickling awareness that had kept her father alive through 15 years of detective work. The instinct that something wasn't right. She turned slowly, scanning the crowd of Saturday shoppers. Donovan Clay stood 15 feet away, near the flower stall, watching her. He wasn't in a suit. Dark jeans, leather jacket, plain white shirt. Casual clothes that should have made him look normal, approachable. But there was no disguising that presence, that coiled tension in his posture, like a predator momentarily at rest. His dark hair was still slicked back, but somehow less severe in the morning light. Their eyes locked. The market noise seemed to fade into background static. The vendor's voice became distant. The world narrowed to just the two of them, 15 feet of autumn air between them, and 1,000 unspoken questions. Donovan moved first, closing the distance with slow, deliberate steps. People unconsciously moved out of his way without seeming to realize they were doing it. Anna. Her heart hammered, but she kept her voice steady. "You know my name?" Not a question. Obviously, he'd researched her. Probably knew everything about her by now. Where she lived, where she worked, where Leo went to school. "I wanted to apologize for my behavior that night." Anna studied him. In daylight, without the chandelier shadows and the audience of terrified staff, he looked different. Less terrifying, more human. The harsh lines of his face softened by natural light, but still dangerous. Maybe more dangerous because of the humanity she could see beneath the surface. Apology noted. Goodbye. She turned to leave, her vegetables still unwrapped on the vendor's table. "Please. 5 minutes." Anna stopped, her back still to him. "I don't need your apologies or your flowers or whatever game this is. It's not a game." She spun to face him, anger finally breaking through the fear she'd been holding back for 2 weeks. "Then what is it? You terrify everyone, including yourself. You scream at waitstaff over perfectly cooked steaks because you need to feel in control. And now you're following me to farmers markets? What's next? You show up at my apartment? At Leo's school?" Something flickered in his eyes. Not anger, but something that looked almost like pain. "I wouldn't." His voice was quiet, almost gentle. "I would never involve your brother." The fact that he knew she had a brother sent a chill down her spine. But the way he said it, with something that sounded like genuine conviction, gave her pause. Donovan looked deflated, his shoulders dropping slightly. "You're right. About all of it. I do terrify people. I do terrify myself sometimes. And I shouldn't be here. But I can't stop thinking about what you said." Anna's anger wavered. This wasn't the man who'd raged about a steak. This was someone else. Someone lost. "There's a coffee shop on the corner," she heard herself saying, against every instinct of self-preservation. 20 minutes. That's all you get. They sat at an outdoor table, even though the November air was cold enough to see their breath. Passers-by gave them a wide berth without seeming to notice they were doing it. Some primitive part of the human brain recognized Donovan as dangerous and kept distance accordingly. Anna ordered black coffee. Donovan didn't order anything. "Why did you say that?" he asked after a long silence. That night, those 3 words. Anna wrapped her hands around her coffee cup for warmth. Because it was true. You don't terrorize people because you're strong. You do it because you're terrified. I've seen it before. People who need everyone to be afraid of them are usually the most afraid themselves. Donovan's jaw tightened, a muscle ticking near his temple. But he didn't explode, didn't stand up and leave, didn't threaten her. "You don't know anything about my life. Then tell me." The invitation hung in the cold air between them. For a long moment, Anna didn't think he'd accept it. Then, slowly, he started talking. Not about the criminal empire, not about the violence or the money or the power, but about the emotional truth beneath all of it. His father's brutality. Lorenzo Clay teaching him that love was weakness, that trust would get him killed, that the only safety in the world was making sure everyone feared you more than they feared anything else. The impossibility of genuine connection when every person in your life wants something from you. The loneliness of power that looked like strength but felt like drowning. Every person around me wants something, he said, staring at his hands on the table. Money, protection, status, access. Even my most trusted men are loyal because I pay them or because they're afraid of what happens if they're not. Nobody just sees me. They see Donovan Clay, head of the Clay family. They see what I can do for them or what I can do to them. But nobody sees just Donovan. Anna listened without interruption, watching emotions play across his face that she suspected he rarely let anyone see. When he finished, she spoke quietly. That sounds exhausting, but it's also a choice. You've built a cage and locked yourself inside it. His eyes met hers, searching for judgment, finding only honesty. Your turn, he said. Tell me about you. Anna hesitated. Sharing anything felt dangerous. But something about this moment, about the vulnerability he'd just offered, made her answer. She told him about her father, Detective Samuel Marcano, and the car bomb that took him. About her mother's slow decline into grief that eventually killed her too. About raising Leo while putting herself through nursing school, working 3 jobs, learning that the only way to survive was to stand up straight and refuse to bow to anyone. I learned that life is too short to bow to bullies, she said. Everyone deserves dignity, including you. Donovan looked at her like she'd spoken in a language he didn't understand. You think I deserve dignity? After what you know about me? I think everyone deserves a chance to be better than their worst moment. He stared at her, and something in his expression cracked. Not quite hope, but maybe the possibility of hope. The idea that redemption might exist even for someone like him. Their 20 minutes stretched to 45. The coffee went cold, forgotten. They talked about childhood, about choices, about the weight of legacy and the impossibility of escape. It was the most honest conversation Donovan had had in over a decade, possibly ever. Finally, Anna checked her phone. I need to get home. Leo will be wondering where I am. They stood, Anna gathering her shopping bag. Donovan moved to help her, then stopped himself, unsure if the gesture would be welcome. That's when the black sedan rolled past, windows tinted dark, moving too slowly for normal traffic. Donovan's entire body went rigid. His hand moved instinctively toward his jacket, toward whatever weapon he carried there. His eyes tracked the sedan with the focused intensity of a predator recognizing a threat. What's wrong? Anna asked, alarm rising in her chest. The sedan turned the corner, disappeared. Donovan's phone was already in his hand, texting rapidly. Nothing. I need to go. Stay away from me, Anna. Please. His voice was urgent now. All the vulnerability from moments ago replaced by cold calculation. I shouldn't have come here. This was a mistake. He walked away quickly, phone already to his ear, speaking in rapid, clipped tones to whoever answered. Anna watched him disappear into the market crowd, confused and unsettled. She didn't know that the sedan belonged to the Rossini family. Didn't know that Salvatore Rossini had watchers throughout the city, looking for weaknesses in the Clay empire. Didn't know that she'd just been photographed sitting with Donovan Clay at a coffee shop, looking for all the world like 2 people on a date. Didn't know that she'd just become a target. All she knew was that for 45 minutes, she'd seen something human in a monster's eyes. And now she couldn't unsee it. 1 week later, the invitation arrived at the Elysian in a cream-colored envelope, and his name written in elegant script across the front. Luis handed it to her during her break, his face already pale with worry. Inside, heavy cardstock embossed with gold lettering. Asterisk Giovanni's. Friday, 8 p.m. Table reserved under Clay. Asterisk. Signed simply, D.C. Don't go. Luis's voice was urgent, almost pleading. Anna, please. This is dangerous. You don't play games with men like him. People who get involved with Donovan Clay end up dead or worse. Anna stared at the invitation, her thumb tracing the expensive paper. She should throw it away, should ignore it completely, should forget the coffee shop conversation and the vulnerability in his eyes and the 45 minutes that it felt like stepping into another world. But she couldn't stop thinking about him, about the loneliness beneath the armor, about the man who'd admitted he was terrified while everyone else saw only terror. "I'm just curious," she said, not quite believing herself. Curious gets you killed. She told herself it was concern, not attraction. He was a criminal who'd built an empire on fear and violence. She was the daughter of a cop who'd died fighting men exactly like him. This was impossible, dangerous, wrong in every conceivable way. Yet something in his eyes haunted her. That moment of genuine honesty. The admission that nobody saw him as human. She couldn't shake it. Friday evening, Anna stood in her tiny apartment, staring at her closet. She owned exactly one dress suitable for a place like Giovanni's. Simple navy blue, modest neckline, nothing fancy. She'd bought it for her nursing school graduation ceremony 3 years ago and hadn't worn it since. Her hands shook slightly as she zipped it up. Leo knocked on her bedroom door. "You look nice. Where are you going?" "Dinner. Just dinner." "With who?" Anna met her brother's eyes in the mirror. At 19, Leo was taller than their father had been, with the same sharp intelligence in his gaze. He knew when she was lying. "Someone I met at work." "Is it safe?" She wanted to say yes. Instead, "I'll text you when I get there and when I leave." Giovanni's occupied the ground floor of a historic building downtown, all dark wood paneling and leather booths. The kind of place where business deals happened in whispers and politicians dined with people they'd never acknowledge in public. The maitre d' took one look at Anna's name and led her through the main dining room to a private corner table. Donovan was already there, standing when he saw her approach. Dark suit, perfectly tailored, but his tie was slightly loosened, the top button of his shirt undone. An old-fashioned gesture, standing for a woman. It surprised her. His men occupied 3 adjacent tables, creating a buffer zone. Vincent and Carlo, plus others she didn't recognize. All of them watching, all of them armed. "You came." Donovan's voice held genuine surprise, as if he'd expected her to ignore the invitation. "I'm curious why a Mafia boss is so persistent about dinner with a waitress." Anna sat without waiting for him to pull out her chair. Small rebellion. Maintaining some control in a situation where she had very little. His lips almost smiled. Direct. "I appreciate that." They ordered food neither of them would really taste. Some kind of pasta for Anna. Steak for Donovan, though Anna noticed his jaw tightened slightly at the choice. The waiter disappeared, and silence settled between them. "I've been thinking about what you said," Donovan began, his fingers tracing patterns on the tablecloth. "About choice. About the cage I've built. And you're right. I don't know how to exist outside these walls. I don't know who I am without the empire, without the fear, without the control." He looked up at her, and the vulnerability in his eyes was startling. "I've been Donovan Clay, head of the Clay family, for so long that I don't remember how to be just Donovan." Anna leaned forward. "Then tear them down. The walls. The empire. All of it. It's not that simple. People depend on me. Families who work for my businesses. Territories that would descend into chaos without someone maintaining order. If I show weakness, if I walk away, rival families will tear apart everything I built, and everyone connected to it will suffer." Is honesty weakness? Donovan's laugh was bitter. "In my world? Yes, absolutely. The moment you show genuine emotion, genuine care, you've painted a target on everyone you love. My father taught me that. His father taught him. It's the first rule of survival in this life." The food arrived. They barely touched it. They talked for hours. About fear and control, about the weight of legacy, about redemption, and whether it was even possible for someone who'd done the things he'd done. Donovan admitted things Anna suspected he'd never said aloud to anyone. "I'm tired," he said quietly, staring at his untouched steak. "Bone-deep tired. I can't remember the last time I slept through the night without wondering if one of my men was planning to take over. I can't remember the last time I had a conversation that wasn't about money or territory or threat assessment. I'm empty, Anna. I've been empty for so long I forgot what it felt like to be full. Anna's hand moved across the table before she could stop herself, covering his. He flinched at the contact, then went very still. Then fill yourself with something other than fear, she said softly. The moment stretched between them, heavy with possibility and danger. Dessert arrived. Tiramisu neither of them had ordered. The waiter placed it between them with 2 spoons and retreated quickly. Anna broke the silence, her voice casual. My father was a detective. He died 7 years ago investigating organized crime connections to City Hall. Car bomb. They never solved it. She watched Donovan's face go very still. Not surprised. Something worse. Recognition. Samuel Marcano. Not a question. Anna's blood turned to ice in her veins. You knew him. I knew of him. Everyone did. He was thorough, relentless, dangerous to people like me. He got closer to connecting the families to legitimate government than anyone before or since. The temperature at the table dropped 20 degrees. Anna pulled her hand back. Did you kill him? No. God, no. Donovan's voice was urgent, almost desperate. Anna, I swear to you, that car bomb was meant for a witness my family was protecting from the Delgado syndicate. Your father was in the wrong place at the worst possible time. The Delgados were sending a message. Your father was collateral damage. Collateral damage. Anna's voice shook with rage she could barely contain. That's what you call an innocent man's death? My father, who spent his life trying to stop men like you, is just collateral damage. I'm not defending it. I'm telling you the truth. I'm telling you that I had nothing to do with it. That if I'd known, what? You would have warned him? Saved him? You're part of that world, Donovan. You benefit from that violence every single day. You built your empire on the backs of people like my father. Tears threatened at the corners of her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. This was a mistake. I can't do this. I can't sit here having dinner with you, feeling sorry for you, seeing you as human when you represent everything my father fought against, everything that killed him. She turned and walked toward the exit, her navy blue dress a dark blur through the restaurant. Donovan didn't follow. He knew pursuit would only make it worse, would only drive her further away. He sat alone at the table for an hour after she left, the untouched tiramisu melting between them, his wine glass full and forgotten. Other diners whispered, sneaking glances at the Mafia boss sitting alone, looking more human and more broken than anyone had ever seen him. Vincent approached carefully, reading the devastation on his boss's face. Boss, take me home. In the car, silence. Vincent knew better than to ask questions. Carlo drove with careful precision, eyes on the road, pretending not to notice that Donovan Clay was staring out the window like a man who just lost something irreplaceable. For the first time in years, Donovan cared about someone else's opinion of him. For the first time since his father's death, he wanted to be better than what he was. And for the first time in his entire adult life, he understood that wanting to change and being able to change were 2 entirely different things. Anna Marcano saw him as part of the machine that killed her father. And she was right. He was exactly that. No amount of honesty or vulnerability or genuine feeling would change that truth. It was destroying him from the inside out. Anna didn't sleep that night, or the next. She lay in her small bed staring at the ceiling, furious at herself for the ache in her chest that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with the look on Donovan's face when she'd walked away. He was a criminal. His world had killed her father, even if his hands hadn't personally planted the bomb. He profited from violence, built his empire on fear, lived a life her father had spent 15 years trying to dismantle. Feeling anything for him was a betrayal of everything Samuel Marcano had stood for. Yet his loneliness had felt genuine. The exhaustion in his voice when he admitted he was empty. The vulnerability in his eyes when he'd said nobody saw him as human. His desire to change seemed real, even if the possibility of actual change seemed impossible. Sunday morning, Leo found her at the kitchen table, still in yesterday's clothes, staring at cold coffee. You look terrible. Thanks. That's helpful. Leo sat across from her, his expression serious beyond his 19 years. "What's going on? And don't say nothing. You've been weird since Friday." Anna considered lying, decided against it. Leo deserved honesty. "I had dinner with someone. Someone complicated. Someone dangerous. The guy from the restaurant? The one Luis warned you about." She'd forgotten how perceptive her brother was. "Yes, Anna." Leo's voice held fear and frustration in equal measure. "Stay away from him. Please. Dad'll want you safe. He died fighting men like that. You can't just forget that." "I'm not forgetting. I'm not forgetting anything." But even as she said it, she knew she was lying. She was forgetting, or at least trying to forget, the way Donovan had looked at her like she was the only real thing in his world. "Promise me you'll stay away from him." Anna met her brother's eyes and saw their father looking back at her. "I promise. No more contact." She meant it when she said it. She really did. Across the city, in a penthouse office overlooking the harbor, Salvatore Rossini studied surveillance photos spread across his desk. Donovan Clay and a young woman at a coffee shop. At a farmer's market. Outside Giovanni's restaurant. "The girl," Salvatore said to his consigliere, tapping one photo. "She's his weakness." Clay doesn't have weaknesses. Everyone has weaknesses. Clay's just been better at hiding his than most. Salvatore leaned back in his leather chair, a predator's smile crossing his face. He's been distracted for weeks, driving past her restaurant, following her around the city, find out everything about her. Within 2 days, they knew Anna Marcano's entire life. Her schedule at the Elysian, her overnight hospital shifts, her weekend tutoring sessions, her studio apartment address, her brother's community college classes, the bus routes she took, the grocery store where she shopped. Everything. Just surveillance, Salvatore instructed. Nothing overt. Not yet. But I want her to know she's being watched. I want Clay to know we've noticed his distraction. Tuesday evening, Anna finished a double shift at the Elysian and dragged herself home just past midnight. Her feet ached. Her back hurt. All she wanted was sleep before her hospital shift started at 6. The apartment door was ajar. Anna's blood went cold. She knew she'd locked it. She always locked it. Leo was staying at a friend's place tonight. Nobody should be inside. She pushed the door open slowly, her phone already in her hand, 911 ready to dial. The apartment had been torn apart. Furniture overturned, cushions slashed, clothes scattered across the floor like someone had emptied every drawer and closet. Books pulled from shelves. Kitchen cabinets hanging open, dishes smashed. On the living room wall, spray painted in harsh black letters. "Stay away." Nothing stolen. The cash she kept in her nightstand was untouched. Leo's laptop still sat on the coffee table, undamaged. This wasn't robbery. This was a message. Anna called the police with shaking hands. 2 officers arrived within 20 minutes, took her statement with the bored efficiency of cops who'd seen this 1,000 times. Domestic dispute, they assumed. Ex-boyfriend. They filed a report that would go nowhere, told her to install better locks, and left. She didn't tell them about Donovan Clay. Didn't mention Giovanni's or the coffee shop or the flowers. Because she knew this was connected, and involving the police would only make it worse. She also knew who was responsible. And more terrifyingly, she suspected who would respond. In his estate across town, Donovan's phone lit up with an alert from the security team he'd assigned to watch Anna's building. Discreet protection she didn't know about. Insurance against exactly this kind of situation. He read the report once. Twice. His vision tunneled with rage. Vincent. Carlo. Now. His voice was ice over nuclear fire. They appeared within minutes, reading the situation in his posture before he spoke. They touched her apartment. Each word was measured, controlled, barely containing the fury beneath. Rossini. It has to be Rossini. They vandalized her home, sent her a message. Vincent exchanged a glance with Carlo. Neither had seen their boss like this in years. The last time Donovan Clay had shown this kind of personal rage, 3 people had died. Boss, if we retaliate, it's war. Open war. The other families will have to choose sides. It could tear the city apart. Then it's war. Donovan was already reaching for his phone, already planning the hit. Rossini's operations, his legitimate businesses, his family. Everything would burn. Boss. Carlos spoke carefully, his voice cutting through the red haze of Donovan's rage. Or, we protect her differently, without bloodshed, without giving Rossini what he wants. Donovan froze, finger hovering over his phone. What? He's baiting you, trying to provoke a response, trying to prove you're distracted, that you've gone soft. If you retaliate with violence, you're playing his game. You're proving him right. Anna's voice echoed in Donovan's mind. You need help. His instinct was violence. His father's training was violence. Violence was the only language he'd ever fluently spoken. But Anna had looked at him like he could be something more than that, like he could choose something different. What do you suggest? The question felt foreign in his mouth. Protection. Surveillance. We watch Rossini's people, but we don't strike first. We play defense instead of offense. Show the other families that you're controlled, strategic, not reactive. Donovan wanted to argue, wanted to paint the city red until Rossini understood that touching Anna Marcano meant death. But Carlo was right. Violence now would only escalate, would only put Anna in more danger. He hated it, but he nodded. The knock came at 2 a.m. Anna had been sitting on her overturned couch, surrounded by the wreckage of her home, too afraid to sleep. She opened the door foolishly, without checking the peephole, because part of her already knew who it would be. Donovan stood in her hallway, alone. No Vincent, no Carlo, no bodyguards. Just him, in jeans and a dark shirt, looking exhausted, almost vulnerable. I know about your apartment. I'm handling it. Handling it how? Anna's voice was sharp with fear and anger. More violence? More threats? How many people are you going to hurt because of me? What would you have me do? They threatened you because of me. Because I was stupid enough to let myself care. Because I couldn't stay away like I should have. Anna stepped aside, gestured him in. The apartment was still a disaster. Spray paint screaming from the wall. Broken glass glittering on the floor. Donovan surveyed the damage. His jaw clenched so tight she could see the muscle jumping. His hands curled into fists at his sides. This is why I told you to stay away, he said, his voice rough. Everyone I care about becomes a target. Everyone I've ever cared about ends up hurt or dead or destroyed. It's the cost of being who I am. What I am. You care about me? The question came out quieter than Anna intended. Donovan turned to face her, and the raw honesty in his eyes took her breath away. Yes, God help me, I do. I've tried not to. I've tried to stay away, to forget about you, to convince myself you were just someone who said something interesting at the wrong moment. But I can't. I think about you constantly. I worry about you. I want to protect you. And that makes you the most dangerous person in my life. For both of us. The admission hung between them, heavy with implications neither could ignore. Anna should tell him to leave, should slam the door, call the police, run as far from this impossible situation as she could get. Everything logical, everything safe, everything her father would have wanted pointed toward cutting all contact. Instead, she heard herself say, I can't stop thinking about you either. And I hate it. I hate that I see something human in you when you represent everything that destroy my family. I hate that I want to believe you could change. I hate that I care what happens to you. They stood 3 feet apart in her destroyed apartment, the air between them electric with tension and possibility and danger. This can't happen, Donovan said, but his feet didn't move toward the door. I know. Neither moved. Neither looked away. The space between them felt impossible to cross and impossible not to. Outside, in a car down the street, Rossini's men took photos. The Mafia boss, alone, entering the girl's apartment at 2 a.m. Staying. The weakness was confirmed, and the trap was set. 2 weeks passed in uneasy quiet. The Rossini family made no further moves. No more surveillance cars. No more messages. Nothing. Anna's apartment was repaired while she worked a hospital shift. New furniture appeared. Fresh paint covered the spray-painted wall. The locks were replaced with something far more sophisticated than her landlord would have installed. She didn't know it was Donovan's doing. Didn't ask. Some part of her didn't want to know. Donovan stayed away physically, though his security team watched her building around the clock. He monitored her schedule obsessively, tracking her movements through reports that felt both protective and invasive. He hated himself for it. Couldn't stop himself from doing it. They exchanged one text message on the fifth day. Anna, thank you for whatever you did. Donovan, stay safe. 3 words. Neither sent anything else. Both stared at their phones for hours afterward, fingers hovering over keyboards, typing and deleting messages that felt too honest or too dangerous or both. Anna tried to return to normal life. The Elysian shifts, hospital overnights, tutoring sessions, but she was constantly looking over her shoulder now, jumping at shadows, unable to shake the feeling that she was being watched. The feeling wasn't paranoia. It was truth. Thursday night bled into Friday morning. Anna's hospital shift ended at 3 a.m. The emergency room finally quiet after a chaotic evening of car accidents and cardiac arrests. She was bone-tired, her scrub stained with someone else's blood, her feet aching in shoes designed for 12-hour shifts but somehow never comfortable. The parking garage was nearly empty at this hour. Second sublevel, her beat-up Toyota parked in the furthest corner because she'd arrived late. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting strange shadows between concrete pillars. Her footsteps echoed too loudly in the silence. Anna's keys were already in her hand when she felt it. That primal awareness that something was wrong. The hair on her neck stood up. 3 men emerged from the shadows between parked cars. Professional, coordinated, moving with the precision of people who'd done this before. Anna ran, dropped her bag, didn't care about her phone or wallet or keys. Just ran toward the exit ramp, her tired legs suddenly finding adrenaline. But they were faster, much faster. Strong hands grabbed her from behind. A cloth clamped over her mouth and nose, chemical smell burning her sinuses. She tried to scream, but the sound died in her throat. Tried to fight, but her limbs went heavy, uncooperative. The world tilted sideways. Darkness rushed in like water, filling her lungs. The last thing she thought before unconsciousness took her, Donovan. Donovan's phone shattered the silence of his bedroom at 3:47 a.m. He was already awake, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep like always. He grabbed it on the first ring. His head of security, voice tight with controlled panic. She's gone. Taken from the hospital parking garage. Happened less than 10 minutes ago. Donovan's blood turned to ice in his veins. His entire body went rigid. Where are my men? Disabled. 2 are in the emergency room now. Concussions, broken bones. This was professional, boss. Military-grade coordination. They knew exactly where our surveillance was positioned. Donovan was already out of bed, already dressing, his mind moving at light speed through scenarios and responses. Rossini. Has to be. Get Vincent and Carlo. Everyone. My estate. Now. He ended the call, hands shaking with rage, so intense it felt like ice rather than fire. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. He opened it with dread, already pooling in his stomach. A photo. Anna bound to a chair, blindfolded with black fabric. Her head tilted slightly down, but her posture straight. Even restrained, even terrified, she held herself with dignity. The message beneath. Trade. East Harbor territory for the girl. You have 48 hours. Instructions to follow. Donovan stared at the photo until his vision blurred. They'd taken her, put their hands on her, terrified her. Because of him. Because he'd been stupid enough to care, selfish enough to let himself feel something human after decades of calculated emptiness. By 4:30 a.m., his inner circle had gathered in his estate's main conference room. Vincent, Carlo, and 8 other key lieutenants, all of them reading the situation in their boss's face. Rossini took her. Donovan's voice was unnaturally calm, the kind of calm that preceded volcanic violence. He wants East Harbor in exchange. Vincent spoke carefully. Boss, we can't give them East Harbor. That's $5 million monthly revenue. Half our shipping operations. If we surrender that territory, every other family will see it as weakness. They'll come for us. Carlo leaned forward. We could hit them hard. Simultaneous raids on their operations. Force them to negotiate. We have a manpower. Donovan stared at Anna's photo on his phone. Her face showed fear, yes, but also something else. Defiance. The same defiance she'd shown when she told him he needed help. The same strength she'd carried since her father died, since she'd raised her brother alone, since she'd built a life out of tragedy. His old self would have calculated coldly. Is one person worth an empire? Is one life worth millions in revenue and the respect that kept rival families at bay? But Anna's voice echoed in his mind. You need help. Everyone deserves dignity. Tear down the walls. Call Detective Ramirez. The words came out steady, certain. Stunned silence. 9 men staring at their boss like he'd spoken in a foreign language. Boss, you want to call the police? Vincent's voice held genuine confusion and concern. In their world, calling law enforcement was unthinkable. It was betrayal. It was suicide. I want to save her. And I'm done with bloodshed solving everything. I'm done with the way we've always done things. Call Ramirez. Tell her Donovan Clay wants to meet. Tell her it's about a kidnapping. At 5 a.m., Donovan sat in a booth at Mel's Diner on Route 7, a neutral location where neither cops nor criminals usually congregated. Detective Julia Ramirez slid into the seat across from him, her expression caught between suspicion and disbelief. Mr. Clay. She didn't extend her hand. Neither did he. To what do I owe this impossible moment? In 15 years of investigating you, I never thought I'd see the day you voluntarily contacted law enforcement. I need help. The admission felt like swallowing glass. Someone I care about has been kidnapped by the Rossini family. I know where she is. I have resources you don't. But if I handle this my way, people die. I'm trying to choose a different way. Ramirez couldn't hide her shock. You're asking law enforcement for help? You, Donovan Clay, are asking me to conduct a rescue operation. Yes. Why not handle it your way? You've never needed our help before. You've never wanted our help before. Donovan met her eyes, and the exhaustion in his face was genuine. Because my way costs lives. Always. I'm trying to be better than that. I'm trying to be better than what my father made me. Ramirez studied him with a sharp assessment of someone who'd spent years building cases against criminals. Who is she? Anna Marcano. Samuel Marcano's daughter. The color drained from Ramirez's face. Sam had been her partner for 6 years before the car bomb. They'd worked organized crime together, trusted each other with their lives. His death had nearly destroyed her. You gotta be kidding me. Sam's daughter? You're involved with Sam Marcano's daughter. I didn't know who she was when we met. By the time I learned, it was too late. I already cared. Donovan's hands were flat on the table, forcing himself to stillness when every instinct screamed to move, to act, to burn Rossini's world down. Please, help me save her. Ramirez was silent for a long moment. Then she pulled out her phone. This is going to require FBI involvement. Organized crime unit. This is bigger than city police. Whatever you need, I'll provide intelligence, locations, guard rotations, everything I know about Rossini's operations. You understand you're burning your entire network by cooperating with us? I understand. Within 2 hours, Ramirez had assembled a task force. FBI agents, SWAT coordinators, forensic analysts. They traced the photos' metadata to an industrial district by the docks, cross-referenced with intelligence Donovan provided about Rossini properties. 3 possible locations. They narrowed it to 1, an abandoned shipping warehouse Rossini used for off-books operations. The raid was planned for nightfall, 18 hours away. Every minute felt like an eternity. Donovan insisted on being present. Ramirez refused flatly. He pushed. She pushed back. Finally, a compromise. You come unarmed. As a civilian consultant. You were a vest-marked consultant. You stay behind the entry team. You follow every order instantly. The moment you break protocol, you're arrested and removed. Understood. Understood. In the cold warehouse by the docks, Anna came to slowly. Her head throbbed where they'd hit her during the struggle. Zip ties cut into her wrists, bound behind her to a metal chair. The blindfold was gone now, and she could see concrete walls, high windows letting in gray dawn light, the smell of salt water and industrial chemicals. Footsteps approached. Expensive shoes on concrete. Salvatore Rossini crouched before her, his face friendly in a way that made her skin crawl. Miss Marcano, I apologize for the rough treatment. Nothing personal, just business, you understand. Anna's voice was hoarse but steady. You're using me as leverage against Donovan. That means he cares about me. That means you're afraid of him. Salvatore's friendly expression faltered slightly. Careful, girl. My whole life, men like you have taken things from me. My father, my mother, my sense of safety. But you can't take my dignity unless I give it to you. Anna held his gaze without flinching. And I'm not giving it to you. Salvatore stood, his smile gone. Something in her composure unsettled him. Victims were supposed to beg, to cry, to break down. This woman looked at him like he was insignificant. He left without another word, the door slamming shut behind him. Anna sat alone in the darkness, breathing steadily, counting her heartbeats, refusing to let fear consume her. Her father had taught her, dignity is a choice. Fear is a choice. She chose strength. She chose to believe Donovan would come. And she chose to survive. 7 p.m. The sun had set an hour ago, leaving the industrial district in shadow. SWAT teams positioned around the warehouse in coordinated silence, black-clad figures moving like ghosts through the darkness. FBI vans parked 3 blocks away, command center humming with controlled tension. Donovan stood among them wearing a tactical vest marked consultant in bright yellow letters, feeling absurdly out of place. For 30 years, he'd operated outside the law, above it, around it. He'd commanded his own operations with brutal efficiency, made decisions that sent men to their deaths, controlled chaos through calculated violence. Now he was following legal procedure, waiting for permission, trusting the system he'd spent his entire adult life evading. It felt wrong. It felt terrifying. It felt like the only right thing he'd done in decades. Ramirez briefed the tactical team one final time, her voice crisp and professional. Multiple hostiles inside. At least 7, possibly more. One hostage, female mid-20s. Our priority is her safety. We go in fast, we go in controlled. Rules of engagement are standard. Understood. A chorus of affirmatives. Donovan stood at the back, silent, his hands clenched at his sides to keep from reaching for weapons he wasn't carrying. Ramirez turned to him. You stay behind the entry team. You don't move until we clear each room. You follow orders. Clear. Clear. She held his gaze for a moment longer, searching for something. Trust, maybe. Or the promise that he wouldn't revert to type the moment violence started. Whatever she saw, she nodded and turned back to her team. Donovan acknowledged a truth to himself in that moment. Standing in the darkness waiting to storm a warehouse, he loved Anna Marcano. Not the obsession of possession his father had taught him. Not the transactional care he'd shown subordinates who served him well. Real love. The kind that made you willing to burn down your entire world if it meant keeping her safe. The kind that made you choose police raids over revenge killings. The kind that terrified him more than any rival family ever had. Go, go, go. The world exploded into controlled chaos. Flashbangs detonated with white light and deafening sound. FBI. On the ground. Hands where we can see them. Shouted commands echoed through the warehouse. Boots on concrete. The sharp crack of a door being breached. Donovan followed behind the entry team, every instinct screaming at him to take charge, to push forward, to find Anna himself. But he forced himself to hold position, to trust the training and procedure that felt foreign and constraining and necessary. They moved through the warehouse room by room. Storage areas filled with stolen goods. An office with financial records scattered across a desk. 2 Rossini soldiers, apprehended in the first 2 minutes, face down and cuffed before they could reach their weapons. Back room, northeast corner. An agent's voice crackled through the radio. Donovan's heart stopped. He moved forward before he could stop himself, but a SWAT member's hand on his chest stopped him. Wait for clear. Seconds stretched into eternities. More shouted commands. More sounds of struggle. Then clear. Hostage secured. Donovan pushed past the SWAT member, protocol forgotten. The back room was concrete and cold, lit by a single bulb hanging from the ceiling. Anna sat tied to a metal chair in the center, her wrists zip-tied behind her, her face bruised but her eyes alert and furious and alive. When she saw him, relief and confusion crossed her face in equal measure. You came. Of course I came. His voice broke on the words. Ramirez was already cutting Anna free, a tactical knife slicing through the zip ties with practiced efficiency. Anna's hands came forward, rubbing circulation back into her wrists. She was shaking now that the immediate danger had passed, adrenaline wearing off to reveal exhaustion and fear. Around them, SWAT secured the building. 7 Rossini soldiers arrested, cuffed, and lined against the wall. Salvatore himself had escaped through a back exit before the raid began, but his operation was crippled. His men were in custody. His warehouse was compromised. The FBI had enough evidence scattered through this building to put his entire organization under federal investigation. Anna stood on unsteady legs. Donovan moved to catch her, but Ramirez was already there, professional and efficient. Ambulance is outside. We need to get you checked out. I'm fine. I just want to go home. Protocol, Miss Marcano. You've been held for over 15 hours. We need medical clearance. Anna looked past Ramirez to Donovan. Their eyes held for a long moment. So many questions. So few answers. Just the overwhelming reality that she was alive and he'd chosen the law over bloodshed, and somehow that mattered more than either of them could articulate. City General Hospital at midnight. Anna had been evaluated, scanned, prodded, given fluids for dehydration and cream for the bruising on her wrists and face. Dehydrated, traumatized, but medically stable. She'd refused the offer to stay overnight for observation. Donovan waited in the hallway, still wearing the tactical vest marked consultant because he'd forgotten he had it on. He looked completely out of place among the hospital staff in scrubs and the police officers taking statements. A Mafia boss in tactical gear, slumped against the wall, staring at nothing. Ramirez approached him, 2 cups of terrible hospital coffee in her hands. She offered him one. He took it without drinking. That was quite a risk, Mr. Clay. Helping us. Cooperating with federal law enforcement. Providing intelligence that will likely be used against you in future investigations. It was the right thing to do. Ramirez studied him with the same sharp assessment she'd used in the diner 12 hours ago. Miracles do happen, I suppose. She paused, something softening in her expression. For what it's worth, Sam would have appreciated you choosing the legal route, even if it's just this once. He always believed people could change if they wanted it badly enough. Donovan's throat tightened. He nodded, not trusting himself to speak. Ramirez squeezed his shoulder once, a gesture of something almost like respect, and walked away to coordinate with her team. Anna emerged from the examination room 20 minutes later, wearing borrowed scrubs because her clothes were evidence now. She looked exhausted, fragile in a way he'd never seen her. But her spine was straight. Her eyes were clear. She found Donovan in the hallway, still slumped against the wall. When he looked up at her approach, she saw something that stopped her breath. Tears in his eyes. Donovan Clay, who commanded an empire through fear and violence, who never showed weakness, who'd spent 30 years building walls so high nothing could reach him, had tears running down his face. I thought I'd lost you. His voice was wrecked, raw with emotion he'd probably never expressed aloud. Anna sat down beside him on the floor, the hospital hallway cold and institutional around them. Nurses passed, police officers took statements nearby, but they existed in their own small bubble of honesty. You called the police. You, Donovan Clay, called the police. Worked with the FBI. Provided intelligence against your own interests. You were right. That night at the restaurant, I needed help. I've needed it for years. Decades. I just didn't know how to ask. Didn't know it was possible to ask. Anna took his hand, their fingers intertwining. His hand was shaking. So was hers. So get help. Real help. Therapy. Legal counsel. Walk away from that life. Not because of me, but because you deserve to be more than what your father made you. It's not that simple. People depend on me. Obligations. Territory. Rival families will see any retreat as weakness. It never is simple, but it's possible. Difficult things usually are possible if you want them badly enough. They sat in silence, hands intertwined, in a hospital corridor at 2 a.m. 2 people from impossible worlds finding something real in the wreckage of violence and fear. Neither knew if this could work. Neither knew if change was truly possible or just a beautiful fantasy. But for the first time in both their lives, they wanted to try. That had to count for something. Donovan returned to his estate at dawn, the rising sun painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that felt absurdly hopeful. He hadn't slept, hadn't changed out of the clothes he'd worn to the hospital. And his safety was confirmed. Leo had been notified, and now came the hard part, ending everything he'd spent 15 years building. His inner circle waited in the main conference room. Vincent and Carlo at the head of the table, 15 other key members scattered around. Lieutenants who controlled territories, oversaw operations, managed the careful balance of legitimate business and criminal enterprise that had made the Clay Syndicate one of the most powerful organizations on the East Coast. They'd been summoned at 5 a.m. with no explanation. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. Donovan stood at the head of the table, his usual position of authority. But this time, the words he spoke shattered that authority completely. I'm dissolving the organization. Silence. Then chaos. What? You can't just walk away. Boss, what are you talking about? 15 years of building this empire, and you're just going to throw it away. The other families will tear us apart the moment they sense weakness. Voices overlapped, rising in pitch and desperation. These men had built their lives around Donovan's leadership. Their incomes, their identities, their sense of purpose all tied to the organization he was now declaring over. Donovan raised his hand for silence. The gesture still carried enough weight that the room quieted, though hostile confusion remained on every face. I'm done. This life, this organization, everything we've built, it's poison. It's killed everything good in me. It's cost me my humanity, and I'm choosing to walk away before it costs me anything else. Vincent stood slowly, his face a mixture of loyalty and betrayal. Boss, I've followed you for 12 years. Through territory wars, federal investigations, rival families trying to take us down. I've bled for you. But this is suicide. You walk away, you're a target. We're all targets. I know. Then why? Because someone showed me it's possible to be more than what my father raised me to be. Because I'm tired of blood and fear and empty victories. Because for the first time in my life, I want to be someone worth caring about. Donovan's voice was steady, certain. Maybe it is suicide, but it's my choice. And I'm making it. Carlos spoke carefully. What about us? What happens to everyone who depends on this organization? You'll have options. I'm not abandoning you, but I'm not leading you anymore. The room erupted again, but Donovan was already walking out. The decision was made. Their acceptance or resistance didn't change it. Over the next week, Donovan met secretly with Detective Ramirez and District Attorney Patricia Chun in a secure federal building downtown. The meetings were long, exhausting, and legally complex. Full cooperation, Donovan stated flatly at the first meeting. Testimony against rival organizations. Financial records, property holdings, evidence of money laundering, illegal operations, everything. In exchange, I want immunity for my subordinates who had no choice in their involvement and continued protection for Anna Marcano. The DA studied him with the skepticism of someone who'd seen criminals make deals and break them countless times. Why should we trust you? You've evaded prosecution for 15 years. What's changed? I'm tired. The honesty in Donovan's voice was undeniable. And someone showed me it's possible to be more than what I was raised to be. I don't expect you to understand. I barely understand it myself. But I'm done with that life. I want out. This is my exit. Ramirez leaned forward. The moment you testify, every family will want you dead. You understand that. I understand. And you're willing to accept witness protection? New identity, new location, never returning to the city. Donovan hesitated. Anna was here. Leo was here. Starting over meant leaving everything, including the possibility of a future with the one person who'd made him want to change. Yes, whatever it takes. The dismantling began systematically. Donovan sold properties to legitimate buyers, often at below-market rates, just to move them quickly. Real estate holdings that had masked illegal operations were transferred to development companies with no criminal ties. Shell companies were dissolved, their paper trails burning in document shredders and digital deletions. Offshore accounts holding decades of profits were donated anonymously to victim support organizations, domestic violence shelters, programs for families affected by gang violence. Money laundered from suffering, returned to help those who'd suffered. It wouldn't undo the damage. Nothing could, but it was something. His men were given choices. Exit packages, generous severance, legitimate job placements through connections Donovan still had, help relocating if they wanted fresh starts, or transfers to other families, recommendations provided, no hard feelings. Most chose to leave. The life lost its appeal when the leader no longer believed in it. Vincent took a security consulting position. Carlo moved to Florida with his family, opening a restaurant he'd dreamed about for years. Others scattered, grateful for the chance to walk away from violence. Some stayed in the criminal world, transferring to Delgado or Kovac operations. Donovan didn't judge them. Everyone made their own choices. But the other families didn't accept his retirement gracefully. 3 weeks after the warehouse raid, a council convened in a private room at the Harbor Club. Salvatore Rossini, despite his legal troubles, still commanded enough influence to call the meeting. Representatives from the Delgado and Kovac families attended. The remaining power structure of the city's criminal underworld, gathering to discuss a problem. Clay knows too much, Rossini stated flatly. Financial connections, territory agreements, operations we've kept hidden for decades. He's cooperating with federal investigators. Every conversation he has with them puts all of us at risk. Michael Kovac, elder statesman of organized crime, nodded slowly. He's a liability. What do you propose? What we always do with liabilities. We eliminate them. A contract was placed on Donovan Clay's life. $2 million. Open to anyone with the skills and connections to reach a man under federal protection. The word spread through criminal networks within hours. Anna was moved to a federal safe house upstate, 40 miles from the city, surrounded by marshals and protective protocols that felt like prison. She protested every step of the way. I'm not leaving the city. I have Leo, my job, my life. I can't just disappear. Ramirez was firm, her tone allowing no argument. Until the threat is neutralized, you're not safe in the city. Every family knows you're connected to Clay now. Your leverage. Your target. This isn't negotiable. Anna hated feeling helpless, hated being locked away while others decided her fate. But she recognized the danger. The Rossini family had already kidnapped her once. Other families would try again, or worse. Leo was placed in protective custody separately, still attending classes under marshal supervision. The separation from her brother felt like losing another piece of herself. She and Donovan were allowed supervised phone calls twice a week. 15 minutes each time, monitored by federal agents, recorded for legal purposes. The conversations were stilted at first, both of them hyper-aware of the audience. But gradually, they found honesty even within the constraints. When this is over, Donovan said during the third call, his voice tired but hopeful. I want to try, really try, a normal life. No empire, no violence, no power games. Just living like a regular person. What does a retired mafia boss do with a normal life? Anna's voice held gentle humor despite everything. I don't know. That's what makes it terrifying and appealing at the same time. Maybe construction work. My father started as a carpenter before the family pulled him in. Maybe I could learn that. Something with my hands. Something honest. You'd be good at that. Building instead of destroying. Silence on the line. Waited with things they couldn't say with agents listening. I'd like to find out, Donovan said quietly. With you, if you let me try. Anna's throat tightened. This was impossible. He was a criminal dismantling his empire. She was a nurse caught in federal protection. They came from worlds designed to destroy each other. But she'd seen something real beneath his armor. Something worth believing in. I'd like that too. When this is over, when we're both safe, I'd like to see who you are when you're just Donovan instead of Donovan Clay. I'd like to meet him too. I don't think I've ever been just Donovan. The call ended at the 15-minute mark, automatic disconnection. Anna sat in her safe house room, staring at the phone, wondering if they'd survive long enough to find out if impossible things could become possible. Outside, federal marshals patrolled the perimeter. Inside, Anna waited and hoped, and chose to believe that dignity and redemption were more powerful than violence and fear, even when all evidence suggested otherwise. 3 months later, winter had settled over the city with the kind of cold that made everything feel sharper, clearer. Donovan stood on the steps of the federal courthouse, his testimony finally complete after weeks of depositions, cross-examinations, and the systematic dismantling of everything he'd built. His former empire was in ruins. Salvatore Rossini had been arrested on federal racketeering charges, his bail denied, his operations crippled. The Delgado family had scattered after key members turned witness. Smaller organizations collapsed without the infrastructure the Clay Syndicate had provided. The city's criminal underworld was fragmenting, and Donovan Clay had been the catalyst. He descended the courthouse steps alone, no bodyguards, no Vincent or Carlo flanking him. Just a man in a gray suit, carrying a briefcase full of legal documents, looking nothing like the feared Mafia boss who'd once commanded half the city. Clay. Donovan stopped, turned slowly. Victor Kovac stood 10 feet away, near the base of steps. Late 60s, silver-haired, impeccably dressed in a navy suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. No bodyguards visible. Just 2 men and a bitter history. Victor, you destroyed everything. Victor's voice was conversational, almost gentle, more dangerous for its calm. 15 families operated in this city with careful balance. Territory agreements that took decades to establish. And you burned it all down because of what? A woman. Donovan descended the remaining steps until they stood face to face. I destroyed a poison we all drank willingly. The violence, the fear, the constant calculation of who to hurt next. That's not power, Victor. That's prison. Philosophical now. Victor's smile was cold. Love made you weak, Clay. Your father would be ashamed. Love made me human. My father raised a monster. I'm choosing something different. Victor's hand moved toward his jacket. Slowly, deliberately. Donovan saw the outline of a weapon beneath the expensive fabric. Federal agents were watching from the courthouse windows, but they were too far away. Victor could shoot and be gone before anyone reached them. Donovan didn't run, didn't reach for a weapon he no longer carried. Just held Victor's gaze with steady calm. You think fear is power, Donovan said quietly. Try love. Victor's hand hesitated. Something in Donovan's complete lack of fear unsettled him. This wasn't the reaction he'd expected. Federal agents materialized from the courthouse entrance, weapons drawn, moving with tactical precision. Hand where we can see them. Now, Victor was apprehended within seconds, the concealed weapon removed from his jacket, his hands cuffed behind his back. He didn't resist, just stared at Donovan with something that might have been respect or hatred or both. Ramirez approached as Victor was led away. Good instinct, not running. We've been monitoring him for weeks. Knew he'd make a move eventually. You just gave us the evidence we needed. I wasn't trying to give you evidence. I just didn't want to run anymore. Ramirez studied him with the same sharp assessment she'd used throughout this entire impossible journey. You've changed, Clay. I'm still not sure I believe it completely. But you've changed. I'm trying. That's all I can do. Anna locked the front door of the Marcano Community Health Clinic at 6 p.m. on a Tuesday evening, exhausted but satisfied. The clinic had been open for 8 months now, providing health care to families affected by violence, offering counseling services, connecting people with resources they desperately needed. She completed her nursing degree 6 months after the federal case concluded, used her savings and a small loan to open this place in her father's name, a way to honor his memory, a way to build something good from all the destruction. Anonymous donations arrived monthly, always substantial, always signed simply, DC. She never acknowledged them, never asked questions, just used the money to hire another counselor, to extend clinic hours, to help more people. Leo was thriving at State College now, studying criminal justice like their father. The irony wasn't lost on Anna. Everything that had tried to destroy their family had somehow led them both toward purpose. She was gathering her things when she heard the knock. Soft, hesitant. The clinic was closed. She almost ignored it, but something made her look up. Donovan stood outside the glass door, backlit by street lamps, looking nothing like the man who'd raged in the Elysian over a steak 15 months ago. He wore simple clothes, jeans, a flannel shirt, work boots. His hair was longer, less severely styled. No gold chain, no expensive watch, but his eyes held something she'd never seen before. Genuine warmth. Peace, maybe, or at least the beginning of it. Anna opened the door, her heart hammering. Hi. His voice was uncertain. I know I have no right to ask, but coffee? Anna studied him. This man had called the police to save her life, had dismantled a criminal empire, had testified against killers and walked away from everything he'd known, had spent a year in witness protection, building a new life from nothing. 20 minutes, just like the first time. They walked to the same coffee shop from that Saturday morning a lifetime ago. Different season now, snow on the ground instead of autumn leaves, but the same small table outside. The same black coffee for Anna. Donovan ordered 2 this time. Tea, Earl Grey, something gentle. I've been in Philadelphia, Donovan said. New identity, new life. Working construction, building apartment complexes. Actually, turns out I'm decent with my hands when I'm creating instead of destroying. And therapy, twice a week. Every week. It's hard, talking about my father, about the violence, about everything I did. But helps. I'm learning that carrying all that alone was killing me. Do you miss it? The power? Donovan considered the question honestly. Sometimes. Usually around 3 a.m. when I can't sleep and the old instincts kick in. But then I remember what it cost. Who I was. The emptiness of commanding people through fear. I don't miss that person. Anna shared her own journey. The clinic's success, families whose lives had changed because of the services they provided. Leo's progress in school, his dreams of becoming a prosecutor, her own sense of purpose, finally after years of just surviving. I think about that night constantly, Donovan admitted. When you said I needed help. 3 words that changed everything. Do you still need help? Every day, but I'm working on it. And for the first time in my life, I'm okay with needing help. I'm okay with being human instead of trying to be invincible. They talked for an hour, the 20 minutes long forgotten, about change and redemption, about whether people could truly escape their pasts or just learn to carry them differently, about the strange paths that had led them both here, to this coffee shop, to this conversation that felt like the beginning of something neither could name yet. Finally, Anna checked her phone. I should get home. Leo's calling tonight. They stood together. The air between them was still charged, but different now. Not the dangerous attraction of before. Something quieter, more real. Can I have your number? Donovan asked. The new one, I mean, if you're comfortable with that. Anna hesitated only a moment before reciting it. He entered it into his phone, a basic model, nothing expensive. She entered his in return. Maybe dinner next month, he suggested. Slow, careful, no pressure. I can't promise this works, Anna said honestly. I'm the daughter of a cop you indirectly endangered. You're a reformed criminal. This is complicated in ways most relationships never are. The best things usually are. They hugged, tentative at first, then genuine. His arms around her felt different than she'd imagined. Not possessive or controlling, just warm, human. They parted the coffee shop. Donovan walked one direction. Anna walked another. No promises beyond dinner next month. No declarations of love or forever. Just 2 people choosing to try. Anna returned to the clinic to retrieve her forgotten scarf. On her desk, she'd framed a photo that a security camera had captured that night at the Elysian. Her in the red apron, pointing at Donovan mid-gesture, the moment frozen in time when everything changed. Below it, she'd written in simple script, "You need help. Everyone does." She turned off the lights, locked the door, stepped into the winter evening. The city spread before her, full of possibility and danger and the messy complexity of real life. She walked with confidence toward an uncertain but hopeful future. Across the street, Donovan watched her go. Then he turned and walked in the opposite direction, hands in his pockets, breath fogging in the cold air. Not yet. Maybe not ever, but someday, possibly, they might find out if redemption and love could coexist with complicated histories and impossible beginnings. For now, they were both learning to be human. That was enough.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine.